Good evening, and welcome back to Post Apoc Horse Talk. I'm your host, Gantages, and this is my co-host, PG. Say hello, PG.
Hi, everybody.
So before we go on tonight, same opening speech. To avoid cluttering the chat and to be more expedient later, if you could ask your questions during the show, BG will compile them for the Q&A section later. Now, our guest tonight is another up-and-coming author from the community, the writer of the story Red 36, and an all-round decent dude. Please give a warm welcome to LD.
Is that my cue?
Yeah, that is your cue. Damn it, we were trying to rehearse this.
Thank you. Hello, good evening.
Yes, welcome to LD to the show. I hope everyone is very nice and kind and warm and welcoming. So,
Appreciate it.
how are you enjoying hospitality here tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me.
So, let us begin with this. You've started something I would personally think is very important to the fandom, important enough to join the Big Five personally as a canon fic, and it's come along very late in the fandom's life cycle.
That is some high.
That is some high praise, yes.
That is some high humbling praise right there. Thank you.
Yes. So, what inspires you to create such a spanning work so late in the day, to put it succinctly?
It was. I had been wanting to write a story for an extremely long time, and sort of what ended up happening is I had wrote, and eventually it got to a point where I just decided that if I was going to write something, I might as well finish it.
You wanted to finish it, so you wanted something. Okay. It just seemed that you paused there in such a point where you wanted to say something more.
Yeah.
Don't worry, bud. Take your time.
Yeah. Could we? Oh, geez. This is exactly what I was worried about.
Like, dude, it's just you. It's just you and me, really. Like, so.
Yeah.
Give yourself a second to think about the answer.
All right. Well, basically, as far as this goes, I had thought about, like, I had been wanting to write a story for a while. I had thought about what to write. Eventually, it did occur to me that things were that the show was ending, but that didn't really dissuade me so much. I guess I would say that I just it was just something that I wanted to do. Sorry, my cards are a little unorganized here.
It just, the feeling overtook you.
Yeah, I suppose so.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question there. So while we are on the broad sweeps of the story, could we also get a short synopsis of it with as few spoilers as possible for those who hate spoilers to the nth degree? You know who you are out there.
Okay. I go by LD. I write a fic called Red 36. It's about a mare who lost everything after Operation Cauterize in the original. It's a post-pit fic that takes place approximately like 5 to 6 months after the original, during like the first initial year of like Reconstruction.
Okay.
That suffice.
I think that's pretty good. So you brought up Roulette is your primary character. From as little as I understand of her and the memes of her, she's something what we call in the biz a bitch. Could you perhaps tell us the inspiration for her and why did you make her like this?
She's a bit hot-headed, yeah. For one, I've always I've enjoyed that sort of character archetype. Though I think maybe she's a bit better. She's got a bit more of a decent heart than the memes would imply. She's got that pugnacious side of her, but I wanted to write a character who was dealing with trauma and trying to move on from the past, which I think really plays well into the current setting, and the time period and what like that sort of what a lot of characters would be dealing with around that time. And the time period itself also gave me like a ton of angles to work with. And I, at least speaking personally, I felt like a lot of readers could relate with the idea of kind of like feeling lost after reaching adulthood. So that was another side of it. I felt like it would be more interesting to write a character that was struggling to fit into the world than as opposed to like someone who was well adjusted. This also makes it a bit easier to present the setting like it's new. One of the most common juxtapositions is between like a stable dweller being introduced into an unfamiliar wasteland. So I decided to do a wastelander kind of being put into a situation that's like unfamiliar to her, and the decision to keep her kind of low to the ground in the introduction was so the reader could like re-experience the setting.
I mean, I can definitely see that, because sure, most readers going into FOE as a baseline will read the first fic, and that's from the perspective of a fish out of water.
Yeah.
Literally, that is always the character when it comes to a stable dweller. But if your second story you read is anyone other than a stable dweller, then it's going to be kind of difficult to have that same kind of spirit of discovery.
Like I suppose that I felt like I wanted to have something that could stand on its own, but that there's the catch-22 to that, because it's also based like on a fanfic in another fanfic universe. It's a fanfic of a fanfic. So
yeah, it's FOE. It's FOE, baby.
It's a bit difficult to navigate at times.
So moving on to our next question.
I'm good now.
All right. It seems we've reconnected. Sorry for technical difficulties. So I'll ask the question again, just in case it gets cut off somewhere. So I have it on good authority that your protag is somewhat obsessed with the Enclave, and to be pointed on this, why? And what inspired you to have your character be this way?
Well, I always really liked the Enclave as a faction, so it was a nice excuse to have them as the focus, despite the time period of them getting a bit BTFO'd by the Stable Dweller. And it also allowed me to present them in kind of a new way. I felt like it would be fun to explore the ramifications of Operation Cauterize and like the consequences that might revolve around Pegasi coming to the surface.
Well, I think there would be an awful lot of fallout from Pegasus that come to the surface. Like, this is a huge population of people which are, one, clueless, two,
Yes.
brainwashed, because they've pretty much had nothing but propaganda drip fed to them from the day they were born to the day that the cloud cover broke up. And three, they're armed and pretty scared.
Yeah, I sort of divided like the general outlooks into about three different subcategories. There was basically those who remain loyal to the Enclave, those who oppose the Enclave, and then there's the other category. But one of the interesting things I feel like is that for 200 years, the war on everyone's mind was sort of in regards to the zebras, but now there's like a more recent conflict that's occurred that might be more fresh and like be causing more issues. And what you said earlier, there are a lot of displaced populations now, and I wanted to kind of explore that. You got not only the Pegasi, there's Hellhounds, there's Alicorns, there's plenty of others. That I'm not thinking of right now.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next question then. So your protags, if I understand, their first companion is Sunny Him?
I suppose that's the. I think that's the correct pronunciation. I always said Sunny Heim, but I know that's not.
Nope, him.
I know that's not right.
Oh,
Curse my religious upbringing.
It's clearly a Pegasus named Frostforth, her favorite companion.
Oh. Oh yeah, that I've had people actually message me and say oh my god, I hate this guy. I hope he dies.
Wow.
So for context, Frostforth is basically an Enclave Karen, if you will.
Oh boy.
True. Yes.
So let us elaborate some more on that.
He's like Squidward but angry and also a Pegasus.
Who is not quite as pleased with his new accommodations in the ex-Enclave refugee camp.
Yes.
And is quite open to show so in his body language and mannerisms.
Yes. So the question about Sunny Heim. Sorry about that. We got a bit.
Apologies for sidetracking like that.
Yes. Sorry. Just a second. Trying to get my notes up again.
No problem.
So my co-host has kind of shown his particular joy at this, but I have it on his authority that this character is something of a wolf in lamb's clothing. Could perhaps you elaborate a little on this character beyond read my damn story already?
Please do though. For jokes aside, the intent behind her is a bit multifaceted. Roulette has kind of a tendency to push others away and only opens up to ponies she cares about, and so when she's introduced, she's meant to be a character to help her come out of her shell a little bit, someone who's understanding, who could kind of help her through what she's going through. But without getting into spoilers, the other side of her character is related to misunderstood relationships, and she's also meant to be lost in her own way. So kind of the idea I had for her was that she she's meant to straddle the line between light and dark and provide a bit of a unique perspective onto current events. And,
I mean, she has wings that would make her something of a shoulder
well,
angel.
she hides those initial. See, you have played yourself, friend. You have. Well, there's been enough fan art of her, I think, that a lot of people have kind of already seen her. But
So you pulled a murky on us.
Yeah, yes. Also, the black silk blouse that she wears is it's supposed to be kind of a subtle indicator of her affiliation. I do a lot of that sort of thing with character designs. Yes.
You have pulled a murky on us, but thankfully less whiny.
Yes. She's cute. She's cute. At least I like to think so.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think it answers my question quite thoroughly.
Thank you.
So you chose to make a post-Pip story, which I feel in the fandom is a topic in constant sway of being oversaturated one way or being undersaturated because people seem to vary between the two almost always. But why specifically did you go for a post-Pip story?
Well, you hear this a lot from like authors. I'm sure the I will be the true post-Pip story. Though we've seen like dozens of these sequels, and each one is kind of its own thing. But none of us are K-Cat, so it's a little difficult to really do that to really do that. When I stepped into this, I was really determined that I'm not here to write a sequel. I would probably consider this more in the vein of something like Murky Number 7 than call it an FOE 2. It's meant it's meant to be a story about roulette, and the setting itself is meant to contribute to that. As far as writing in post-Pip goes, I have a very specific set of rules and philosophies that I follow in regards to world building in the time period. But the biggest one is to focus on character and not setting. The setting I only did because I was confident, since I had done lore speculation for so long. Eventually, I just decided, hey, I can do this. I tried to build on what was already there and attempt to come to the most logical conclusions, speak to a lot of my fellow authors. I'd say one of the big hangups to writing in post-Pip is just that it's an, or maybe not hangups, but it's an opportunity to tell stories that you wouldn't be able to tell in a wasteland setting. And so I felt if I were to tell the same sort of story that I could easily write pre-Pip, then it would be a bit of a waste.
I mean, it would kind of make anything that they achieved pre-Pip almost irrelevant.
Yeah, that especially. It's I feel like if I were to do something like FOE or Project Horizons, those things already exist. So it's I so I feel it's a bit pointless for me to like retread on something that already exists.
Mm.
Like one. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say earlier. One of the and then I immediately forgot it. Go me.
Don't worry, dude. Like this is a mentally aerobics time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As far as a lot, I know that there are people that want to try to account for everything that the fandom has ever produced, and that's just setting yourself up for failure. So I did not do that. I would love to do that, but I mainly focused on like a few things. I would love to do more of it. But one of my main strategies is to keep her like very low to the ground, keep the story focused on her, build the setting in in what I would consider the most logical way that I can. I have for one, I definitely don't name the elements. But I suppose I think probably I don't know if this is like a little off topic, but probably one of the most rewarding parts about it is that I've had people sort of approach me and tell me that like they sort of that Red 36 like inspired them to like do their own stuff.
Yeah, that's always a great feeling.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest compliment that you can get as a creator. Like if someone takes the ideas you put out and makes something even better, that's even more rewarding. So so I suppose if Red 36 ultimately inspires people to create more of the sorts of stories that I want to see, then that would make it more than worth it. I could explain more about like the philosophy, but I don't want us to be here all day. So
I do feel that you've gone a little bit away from the question, but this was still productive anyway.
Okay.
So you wanted to go for a story because you wanted, if I understand rightly, to have your story mean something a bit more than you wanted it to mean something also different from the big fix.
Yeah, I mean it's not an easy question. I apologize for like a bit of the ramble. It's not an easy question to answer. It's just something that I wanted to do, and I decided that hey, I can do this. Like after years and years of like just doing lore speculation on my own, I just decided.
Let's put my brain juices on the page.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Kind of lost my own train of thought here. So let's move on to my next question then. Actually, no, I don't know what I wanted to ask you. When it comes to like post-Pip stories, there's an awful lot more going on. Like you honestly have an awful lot more scope to do stuff because, like I mentioned before, it is kind of anything that's pre-Pip. In the end, ends up being kind of irrelevant. There's no way that anything that you write in these stories can truly ever be groundbreaking in any real way.
Yeah.
Because the fact is that according to this wasteland, rightly or wrongly so, or if it's just lazy writing that no one else has done anything, the fact of the matter is, Little Pip fixing everything, a wizard pony did it, is the defining moment between things being being in the realm of being totally fucked, and then moving into the region of being unfuckled.
So sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question again?
It's not really a question; it's more like a comment. But you didn't actually say what were the rules that you were following when you were writing your story. Like, what concepts you had to keep in your mind when you were writing this story.
The main one is that there are sorry about this.
It's all right.
I just need to go through my notes a little bit. One of the main ones is to focus on story and not character. Characters as like opposed to the setting. Like the setting should serve the characters, but it's also kind of difficult because you're in sort of like a pre-established setting. So that the good news is that you can kind of contrive conflict from anything, but you should. But the difficult thing about writing post Pip is that there are so many different like gears and moving parts to keep track of. It's almost understandable why a lot of people will like propose ideas for it, but never like end up actually doing it. One of the things, sorry about this, let me just going through my notes a little bit here. Here we go. I suppose that one of the things that's really helpful is to focus on smaller scale conflicts.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of authors are really obsessed with putting the fate of Equestria at stake when it really doesn't need to be.
Yeah, we're looking at you, Project Horizons.
That kind of goes like into like an earlier point. Like if you're trying to like emulate Project Horizons like already exists. So if like Project Horizons inspires you, you should do something that's like inspired by Project Horizons, not just Project Horizons again. So as far as like my world building philosophy is, I try to take things that already exist and then build off of them. Like, oh, we got all these like crashed raptors and like leftover tech from the Enclave now. Okay, what can we do with that? What are we got like this crashed Thunderhead. What's gonna happen with that? I make certain to avoid certain like definitive questions like the element bearers. But to a degree, I have to end up like answering some of these questions because I'm sort of also like blazing trails in some ways. I don't want to like come across as like arrogant or anything. It's just
you do have like 10 years between the end of
Sunshine Rainbows. There's like a lot of there's a lot of logical leaps and speculation you have to make. as far as like writing in the setting goes, and there's so many like just moving parts and different characters. One of the ways though that I feel like I was able to help ground the story a bit was by like focusing on existing characters like Radar, who was previously like a very like little mentioned or focused upon character.
I mean,
like I don't think like anybody
wasn't
had
it like
really.
implied that he died at the Battle of Friendship City?
Yeah, he did. I but like in the story, uh, he's sort of a focus post mortem.
Oh, so his life is having an impact here.
Yeah, and like because he's a very old aged character, and I felt like there was like a lot of potential um for things that he could have done throughout his life that was because we literally only saw like a fraction of this, less than a fraction of this character. Like Little Pip met him, he told her about like the SPP tower.
He
Calamity was like,
turned
he's
up.
the first Ashite. That's it, like nothing else. So
He turned up. He gave exposition. Then he died.
yep. So I felt like that character I was able to sort of do my own thing with. I was able to like expand upon him, and like I've I've had like people tell me that like prior to like Red 36, like I never even like really thought about this character. So like mission accomplished, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing that I like to do. I like to keep the stories like more personal. There's like nothing that would upend the setting like in such a way, because like in the show you have like entire episodes can be like dedicated to like a single spell going off, or like a friendship problem. And we see in a lot of fan fiction you see uh it's like almost always like an Equestria wide threat, like in a lot of stories. I would like to see like more like smaller scale conflicts that don't come with upending the entire setting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, this is something that I tend to try and do when I run my role playing games. For any new people listening, I do role playing games in my own time. So I'm not going to try and take too long on this point. Um, I don't like making stories where the big bad or the whatever the thing is the party's going after, be it a MacGuffin or some sort of conflict. It doesn't end the world. That's always the key thing. It's not allowed to end the world. It can be, locally potentially apocalyptic, but it's in the great scheme of things not going to cause that great a problem.
Yeah, like generally settings get people interested, but characters keep people invested.
Yeah,
That's what
like
I would
you
say.
can have a really incredible setting, but if you don't have people that you can relate to in that story, it's going to be, look at this amazing set dressing for my cardboard cutout characters.
Yeah, I really like that way of putting it. Like that's how you attract the first readers and fans of Fallout Equestria, in that they see the fan art, they like the aesthetic of the setting, but then when they actually read the stories and then they find interesting characters like Sunny Him, it's that's what keeps them hooked.
So yeah, it's just at least for an example of something that I've done in one of my role-playing games, something that BG here can understand a little bit,
Yep.
is the Lone Star setting. So in the Lone Star setting, it's set about 5-ish years after Sunshine and Rainbows in basically equestrian Texas.
I like that.
So basically, one of the key things, I mentioned this to actually a number of people on this show. This takes place in not necessarily an alternate universe, but a what-if scenario. Like it asks the question, what would the NCR look like 5 years from now? And how did it survive its very hostile beginnings? Because let's be truly honest here, the NCR had a very hostile beginning.
Yeah, I would personally think that they would have everything at their disposal to succeed, kind of in a way, though, at least from my perspective.
I'm just saying that the way I thought about it
But
in my head.
no, I agree with you that like not trying to like come off as like disagreeing, but like yeah. I agree
Oh, sure.
with you.
Like, don't get me wrong. They had plenty of opportunities to succeed. They had good leadership. They have resources. They have a lot of things in their court. But
Yeah, they would face a lot of opposition in the beginning, no doubt.
yes, we have the biggest problem is you've got a huge number of little factions of roughly equal size to them from when Philadelphia just shattered. So in this alternate scenario, the NCR, instead of just trying to beat up all of its enemies and forcibly make them part of them in the beginning, they offered an ultimatum to many of these slaver warlords. The offer was, you can keep your personal slaves, and the same with your closest lieutenants. The rest of them have to go free, and you throw your materials behind the NCR at this point in time in exchange. You get to keep your particular level of privilege in this society in exchange for helping us. And a number of warlords kind of took them up on that offer. So, like, they saw the writing on the wall because they knew that they could beat the NCR, but that would also leave them personally vulnerable to some other warlord just coming along taking them out. Same with the NCR. They could take out anyone else, but that would again leave them vulnerable to others. So they needed to get more allies, more material worth behind them, and even the playing field as to what they wanted to achieve. So it ended up being that the NCR had a quasi, or I say quasi, it basically was like America during the 1840s to 1860s. You've got a lot of people, like some places don't have slavery, some places do. And there is a number of people trying to prevent slavery from expanding, others trying to expand it, and it's generally a massive diplomatic clusterfuck.
Interesting. Should I would you mind if like I shared my takes on certain things? I don't want to just like turn the
Sure, you
podcast
feel free.
like
we got plenty of time tonight. It's all good.
Just spouting off like random headcanons. I suppose I felt like Pip and her allies would have like more or less like everything at their disposal to succeed. Like I feel like the Enclave would get BTFO'd. Okay, let's move. let's move on. I
sure?
don't.
Well, you can keep saying.
I'm not in a. I'm not currently like prepared to like have the conversation. I don't
We
think
can have this conversation between you and I at a later date.
That's fine, but interesting take. I like I find these sorts of things interesting, and it also kind of like plays into like why I think writing in post pip is kind of difficult, because like everyone like has like sort of their own takes, and there's like no real like definitive like the only thing you can really do is go off of like what you think is the most logical.
There's no guaranteed way to, present a like. Everyone has their own idea of how the wasteland would be.
Yeah, I would say I feel I've spoken to Heartshine. I feel like me and her like more or less have like similar philosophies on how to handle like post pip stuff, and so that was encouraging. I would say I'm pretty confident in my in my world building. There's just like a like some when you like boil down the entire setting, some like there are like core issues underlying in FOE that you can't really solve because they're carried over from issues with Bethesda.
Yes.
So that kind of makes it a little more difficult in that respect. But I try my best. And people seem to be enjoying it, and I'm having an interview here with you lovely people, so I guess
it can't be all that bad.
But yeah.
Anyway, so this is the last specific question before I move on to the more obligatory questions. The more interviews I keep doing, the more I discover like mini novelistic universes within the stylistic universe of FOE. Like we were kind of proto touching on that just a moment ago. So does your fic happen to share a novelistic universe with some other fics?
Kind of. I would like to say I had more of those, but I'm kind of focused on my own thing, so it's more like amongst like people I talk with, or like big stuff. Though I would probably consider Murky in there because the world building for Philadelphia is really good. One thing I kind of like to do is drop hints sometimes and like let the reader fill it in for themselves. If one of the cool things about Murky, I feel like, is it's purely like focused on Philadelphia, so it's kind of easy to and it has great world building, so it's kind of easy to take it into account.
Okay. Well, let's just move on to our more specific questions then.
Yeah.
More obligatory ones, sorry. So how did you get into MLP and then probably by extension FOE?
Okay, for MLP, when I was in college, I ended up like losing contact with everyone I knew, and that's kind of like a common thing when you go to college. But this was a pretty depressing time for me. So MLP came along, and it was like the blast of color and like positivity that I needed at about that time.
Mm-hmm.
And So early MLP fandom, wish I had gotten more involved. I've always been kind of like a hardcore lurker. I'm sure
It's fine, my dude.
you think you think I'm stuttering and I'm nervous now. I was so much worse before. But it's got like it had like a lot of like generally like good values and like lessons for everyday life, and I would say it probably helped me become like a bit of a better person over time after, especially like after like reflection and all that good stuff. For Fallout Equestria, when I initially came across it, I decided to read it as a joke. It was like, oh wow, this what is this? But it's like a MLP Fallout crossover. This is gonna be terrible. But then I started reading it and I got really into it.
Oh
and,
wait, this is actually really good.
Yeah, wait, this is actually pretty good. So I liked that it's like basically an open source author community, like exploring topics and ideas that like Fallout really isn't capable of exploring. Like I love Fallout, but like it's FOE is kind of like its own thing. And as time went on, my interest became kind of like less in the show itself and more into this like little sub fandom. I don't know if I would still be as involved with MLP if not for Fallout Equestria.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm kind of feel the same way about it. Like the MLP fandom is nice and all, but there ain't much there for me.
I mean, and that's one of the two possible fandom halves there. Do you have any experience with the non-pony Fallout fandom?
Yeah. I was a Fallout fan before I was an MLP fan, and before I was a Fallout Equestria fan.
Oh, that's somewhat of an anomaly in this fandom, I
Yeah,
believe.
a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people. You hear the story where, oh, I liked Fallout Equestria, and so I got into Fallout. I was the opposite. I thought it was gonna be a bad joke. Actually, it turned out I really liked it. Interesting setting, good stuff. Rest is history.
Yeah, like at least I'm pretty sure I was into Fallout before I got into MLP, but it was kind of at a time where I got into like all of them at the same kind of time.
Yeah.
Actually, 100%. Would have gotten into MLP in like 2012, and FOE was probably like late 2012, early 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would have played New Vegas by that time.
Here's an interesting fact for you. Roulette is actually super old. She's almost as old as Blackjack.
Blackjack isn't that old.
Well, she was made at like the beginning of the fan. No, like I mean in a general sense, not a not like a proper age sense. Like she was made in like 2012 or wasn't she? Or like was it started like in 11? Either like I mean either way, like I started working on the character in 2012. Mecca, like my friend Mr. Mech and I finished the design like at the end of 2012. There's been a few redesigns like over the years, but like
I see.
Huh?
I see what you're on about. Yeah, the idea of the character has existed as long as Blackjack has been around.
Well, I mean, Blackjack's older, obviously, but she like. But my point is, like, she's pretty old. She's like actually like been around for like a while. But I didn't like. It took me a while to like figure out like what to do with it story wise.
Yeah, I can see that. Anything else you want to add while you're here?
Nope. Next question.
Cool. Next obligatory one. views on the big five. So FOE, PH, Heroes, Pink Eyes, and Murky.
All right. Well, I think each of them has contributed to the fandom in their own way. Like like Project Horizons, like Somber gets a lot of shit, but I do think that he kept a lot of interest in the fandom. So like, love it or hate it, I'm grateful to all of them in some way or another.
Yeah,
Murky is probably my favorite though.
I've said it before on this show, and while there is an awful lot not to like about Project Horizons, there is so much not to like. I still think, as the fandom overall, it's a magnum opus. It's a very important, seminal work in the fandom, regardless of your opinions on it.
I could agree to that.
So, any more specific thoughts? Have you actually read Pink Eyes and Heroes as well?
I never actually did read Pink Eyes. I read
Man.
like about halfway through Heroes. Um, FOE and Murky are the only ones that I actually finished.
I still need to finish all five of the big five. There's two more left I've not done. I've not done Murky just yet, and I've not finished Heroes.
Hopeful for Big Six? No.
I'd like it to make it Big Six because I really like Red. I like the concept of Red 36. I've seen it kind of blow up compared to other fics, much more than all the others. So
what I would not give to have released this in like 2014. Oh God, those numbers would be huge.
Yeah, my man.
The catch-22 to that, though, is had I started writing back then, I would not be the same person I am now. So it's like,
Swings and roundabouts.
Yep.
All right, then. Moving on, then. So, what do you think about the FOE fandom in general? How healthy do you think it is right now, and where do you think it's going?
I think it's not dead, but it's definitely consolidated. I feel like I've seen new people recently, but I'm kind of antisocial, so I'm not like a great gauge on that. It's seen better days, no doubt. But I almost feel like Bethesda did more damage to FOE than the show ending did, like in a weird way, because like I can't like really confirm this or anything, but it's it seems like the Fallout brand has taken some hits recently, but then on the other side of things, you also have like modders and stuff, and like people are still writing stories and doing art, and I think that's great. We Pony Life is also going right now. So I haven't watched that.
I'll need to give it a watch at some point because I've heard mixed things about it.
I have heard the same. Um, as I I'm hoping that maybe if G5 is good, we'll see kind of like another bump, because the pony fandom has like existed for forever prior to like G4, like since like the
But
1980s, right?
it clearly went into something like a dormant kind of period before D4.
Yeah. But I guess the main thing I would say is right now, like creators and like fanfic authors are the ones that are keeping this alive. So if you've got a great idea, I think you should go for it.
You heard it here first, folks. LD wants you to write fics. No matter how good or bad they actually end up being, just get your ideas on paper because it'll hardly hurt. It might even help.
Yep.
All right. Couple more questions. So, You know what? I'm going to skip this one. Let's move on to the final question. So let's start a flame war, my friend, with the most contentious question to date. Who is best pony in any FOE work that you've seen?
Roulette would claim that she is the best, but jokes aside, if I had to choose a character, Murky is best boy, I'll say.
Oh boy, this is going to end badly. On that very touching note, let's go to our first commercial break.
All right.
Gee, Grandpa, what's that swell-looking stuff you're drinking?
Well, my boy, it's the cool, refreshing taste of Sunrise Sarsaparilla. Unlike Sparkle Cola, Sunrise always stays smooth and carbonated, and there's no risk of death by radiation poisoning.
Jeepers, that's keen.
You said it, Grass Stain.
Remember, kids, sip your Sunrise Sarsaparilla to keep you shining, sharp, and swell. It's the official drink of the Junior Steel Rangers.
Sunshine, you'll be mine, Sunrise Sarsaparilla.
And welcome back. We do apologise for the very long break, but I had to get some something to eat in that time. So let us move on to our lore and discussion time. So again, we're letting the guests has decided the topics for tonight. So let us begin with our first topic.
Exciting.
Unusual magic in FOE. And at what point does unusual magic become Mary Sue-ish?
Would you like me to begin?
Well, I mean, you were the one who picked the topic, so you clearly have
fair
something
enough.
to say.
The general rule is so long as it doesn't what's the word for it? It doesn't get in the way of the plot. Like if it makes it if it invalidates the plot, then that would be Mary Sue-ish. But as a personal preference, I I would say no anime. I like to keep it closer to like the sort of thing that could exist in the show. Or like D&D or Witcher-esque or something, as opposed to like Sword Art Online. I don't know.
Yeah, as a general rule of thumb, don't anime up your FOE fic. Just don't.
Let's not do Naruto FOE crossovers, please.
Yeah, not exactly the best choice of yeah. Do you have anything else you wanted to add to this?
Geez. Here I am, caught like a deer in headlights. I think it plays more into like the second topic that I kind of wanted to get into, the which they kind of blend together a little bit, I'd say.
Okay. So you wanted to move on to the line between magic and technology in FOE.
Yeah. If something relates to the first one, yeah, like as far as like unusual magic goes, I think magic is magic, and it's you can do a lot with that. Generic response. But it's difficult. It's more difficult to put into words than I thought. So could I get into the second first?
Sure, feel free to open it up.
Okay. Well, as far as the line between magic and technology goes, I think FOE is a very interesting setting because it has kind of like a weird like mishmash of technology and magic science, arcana science, or whatever. Though there is I think that often people kind of like lean a bit too heavily on like the science side of things and end up forgetting that this is like that it's basically a magical wasteland.
Yeah.
This actually gives me an excuse to talk about one of my favorite things that in FOE. Have you heard of Tales of a Junktown Pony Peddler?
I've heard of it. Didn't have a chance to read it or listen to it. I think it was more apt.
It's like a radio play. Sadly incomplete.
Yeah.
Basic. Hold on. Okay. Well, basically, Tales of a Junktown Pony Peddler. It was made by the same people who did the Doctor Who's radio play, not the derpy one, but the Twilight one. And it's basically like a radio play series that's following a trader pony in the wasteland. And each episode has like really high, stunning production value. Absolutely love it. Squeak. I'm doing the okay hand sign. I can't, like, you can't see, but very much love that series. One of the things that I like about it, though, is that it, because he's a trader, he kind of like knows like all these like little secrets and stuff in the wasteland. Like in one episode, there's a radio that they got from a trader, and you find he tells the character that's the audience surrogate that you can with a code you can access like a secret radio station. And I kind of wish that there was like more just like random very odd like magical oddities like in the wasteland like this. And I think there's like kind of like a general like lack of that in a lot of stories. You often see like stuff like very heavily like leaning on like the magic science aspect of it.
Yeah, this is a thing that actually a friend of mine who runs role-playing games has a problem with, in my opinion. You know who you are. I'm going to keep your name out of it to hide your guilt. But his game was very, very tech orientated. To the point where it doesn't feel really FOE-ish enough. It feels like a pony sci-fi apocalypse, not FOE.
Yeah,
Which,
like
while FOE is a pony sci-fi apocalypse, it's
is.
not quite the same pony sci-fi apocalypse.
Yeah, like something I don't, and to be fair, I don't read a ton. I don't read a ton, so I realize I can't really speak broadly on this topic. But in the show, like you would have stuff like the one it needed spell in lesson 0, and that would like be like the main problem caused in like the episode. You don't see like as much of that in like FOE. It's like often like guns or like I feel like Fallout Equestria is really unique in that you kind of have both, but people often end up forgetting the magical side of things in favor of kind of like the magical sci-fi side. I try to like look at, could this like reasonably exist in the show? If it were like an utterly screwed up, hell blasted pony apocalypse. And magic is magic. It's like the reason you differentiate that between science is because you can do things with like magic that are basically like unexplainable. You can't like, I mean, as long as it follows like the rules of magic in that world, it's pretty. Most things are possible.
Yeah, like for example, we actually brought this up when Whack was on the show. He mentioned the fact that the Pip Buck makes more sense than the Pip Boy, because there isn't any way to make a handheld computing device of that size with the specifications that we know that the Pip Boy has. That's not possible. Especially considered the fact that the microtransistor in the Fallout universe was a recent invention before the apocalypse. It was made like 2050, I believe, the microtransistor in that universe.
Yeah. Oh my god. You know, at one point I had the entire like Fallout timeline memorized, but then like I stopped paying attention, so I forgot it.
You stop paying attention, now nothing makes any sense.
Yeah, I forgot the dates, unfortunately. I used to be that big of a nerd, though.
Though this does come from Fallout 4, and it was on what's his name, Jack Cabot's terminal.
I see.
Yeah, he mentions that the transistor was a new thing, and he didn't think it would catch on.
Yeah, though, if I could recommend Tales of a Junktown Pony Peddler, pretty good. I would recommend.
BG, would you be a dear and go get the link for that for the chat?
On it.
Though
right.
Just be prepared for disappointment when you get invested, and then
no more episodes.
It's got each episode has good production value, though.
Yeah, and one of my really enjoyable YouTubers, one who did a lot of really cool reviews, at least for my benefit. Anthony C is in it.
Repeat that.
Anthony C, a YouTuber that I quite like from Australia.
Oh, Anthony C, yes.
I think he's from Australia. He just really does not sound Australian at all.
I don't remember his accent off the top of my head, so I can't comment.
I think that kind of covers most of what your particular contention with this, right? Unless you had something else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's all right, dude.
I feel like I'm feeling like maybe that wasn't in depth enough.
Don't worry about it. Like L. Can I
we
call
can
you L?
To the next one if you want.
Can I call you L?
Yes. Be
all
my
right.
guest.
Any amount of discussion is fine. I'll be honest. To you, Miss, and you in the chat. I mostly do this to pad for time. I also enjoy it, but time padding is also sometimes fun.
Fair enough.
You also wanted to talk about magical items as commodities. This has been on the show before, like I mentioned on another earlier show. A few funny. Sorry.
Did Whack talk about this too?
No, he didn't talk about this one, though I think he might
follow-
have something to say.
I'm following another act. A lot of pressure.
Well, what I said on the topic is that I've thought of some kind of malicious ways that potentially companies in the FOE universe could use magical items as commodities, because the items in the FOE universe are built to last, because one of the ways Earth Pony magic manifests in the universe is that things just don't break.
You cut out there for a sec?
Sorry. I was trying to mention that one of the things about what is it? About how Earth Pony magic manifests in FOE is that Earth Pony stuff just doesn't break, and Earth Ponies basically make everything.
Yeah, I could see that.
So the way
thing.
Sorry, carry on.
Sorry,
carry on.
Okay. One thing that I was that made me like raise a bit of an eyebrow was like the commodification of Radaway.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I remember this. Please go on.
Well, in FOE, like you didn't really. I mean, was there really the? I mean, you had the stables that were built, but it didn't really like go into like a lot of detail as to like why. I guess it's like the sort of thing that's like, again, it's carried over from Bethesda Fallout games. Why like Radaway would be like certain items are like apparently like commonplace, but you wouldn't expect them to be.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. Like certain kind of very specific kind of medical items were commodified to the point where they're common enough in the post-apocalypse that you can pick them up.
Like the other thing is, you know, speaking of, you know, we're focusing a lot on companies. I wonder if there would be like magical item vendors and such in the apocalypse.
I mean, I was about to actually get on that.
Oh,
so
well, by all means.
So one of the things I mentioned before on another stream was that there's a few like sample items that you could potentially, minor magical items that you could sell to the public that would encourage repeat sales. One of the examples is the magical teleporting pen. So you can create a pen that has infinite ink and then sell it, but you can only sell it once. What if that an enchantment on the spell on the pen, so after a certain amount of time, it disappears. It just goes back to the factory to be repacked and sold again.
I kind of like that. I'm always losing my pens. That's what happens to them, I guess.
Yes, or perhaps say
real life head cannon.
Or perhaps like a set of magical corrective lenses, because as far as we understand, corrective lenses in the Fallout universe, or Fallout FOE universe, are basically one size fits all. You put them on, they correct your eyeglasses, but they correct your eyes. But if they're cheap, maybe the enchantment on them is that after a certain amount of time, they make you more accident prone, like minor things, like you fall over more often and maybe accidentally break your glasses, so you have to get another pair.
I could see that sort of thing, like scummy magical vendors just like coming to town. Would certainly make you a bit more wary of traders, though, if they're selling that sort of thing.
Yeah, but perhaps they don't actually tell you that they're enchanted in such a way. They probably wouldn't tell you.
Probably not. I mean, unless they're like unless they come to town in like one of those like weird tricksy wagons, and then like,
Oh,
I'm
no.
I'm selling, hey, everyone, I'm selling. Look at these cool magical items I'm selling, and then they leave, and then it screws up the town. I mean, that
The
could
town
be.
just burns to the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
But there is also
Come
the fact-
one, come all.
Sorry, carry on.
I've got the solution to your problems.
I promise you, like in the FOE universe, Flim and Flam 100% go into big business. And they're
Definitely.
selling all manners of fucking nonsense MacGuffins to people. Was there
Yeah,
anything-
like
Sorry, carry on.
kind of like I mentioned earlier, like with like the one it needed spell, like this is like the sort of thing that could like easily be like just like the conflict like of a chapter or something.
Oh no! Oh god, no! A horrible idea came to my mind.
Oh no! Tell me.
There is a competitor now to the Pip Buck. It's called Orange, made by the Orange family, which is the cousins of the Apple family.
Oh yeah.
And they sell also hoof-mounted computers, but they're not all that great. But they've got a want it need it spell on them.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no!
I feel like that would be the sort of thing that you'd be taking to court for.
I mean, it's not actually saying it's a certain company, but it's it's parodying them. It's parody.
I can kind of see that. They basic. It wasn't like the one it needed spell proper, but they kind of like during the Christmas special, with where they were all Christmas shopping. Like it kind of had like that vibe to it. You remember the one I'm talking about, right?
Maybe, possibly. Remind me.
You remember where they all did like the gift swap thing, like that one MLP Christmas special, and then like Flim and Flam were selling these like really crappy like discount dolls, and like they're like, you have to have it, and then so like everyone like was like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever, and then they bought it, and it was like, oh wait, this is shit.
I don't actually remember seeing that, no, but that does sound pretty good.
It was like a Christmas special.
Yeah, I do recall it. Yeah.
Anyway, let's just move on to our next topic, because we could be sitting here just thinking of awful ways that equestrian companies could swindle the hard-working ponies out of their bits.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about like just you're always finding like these magical artifacts. It would be cool to just have like some like random mirror or something. It's like, oh wow, what does this do? And then you're soul trapped, I guess. I don't know.
Why would anyone do that?
I mean, this setting is pretty grimdark already.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this was a little bit off topic from the last three. So, yeah, the other three were all magic related in some way. You specifically picked this one too. How strong are and should Steel Rangers be, both Loyalist and Applejack?
As far as I picked this mainly because I I didn't want to go into Enclave lore because I'm dealing with that in the story. I was working on a Steel Hooves prequel at one point, That didn't end up going anywhere, sadly. But I did a lot of looking into their lore and stuff. So, but as to answer the question, I feel like each one would be like relatively like well trained. Like in the earlier games, like power armor basically made you into like a walking tank.
Oh
Though
yeah, I remember seeing that.
Like each author kind of like treats Steel Rangers like differently. Like Brimstone like wrestled with a like wrestled with like a single ranger in a chapter, I believe. But like Silver just like punched like a dozen of them and like flung them in a pile. So I would lean more towards each one being like relatively strong.
You know, the way I kind of err on it, because
Huh?
Sorry, I was just going to interject with a comment.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you have anything more you wanted to say before I continue my point?
No, you can come back to me to finish your point.
No, finish your point. It's absolutely...
You're the guest.
You've got right of way.
No, you, sir. After you.
Is this a Canadian standoff with two polite...
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'll take the point. So, from the times that I've ran games, I don't like making Steel Rangers pansies, basically. They are meant to be the descendants of the pre-war military. They have the best gear going besides the Enclave. They've got the best training going besides the Enclave, best weapons besides the Enclave, and pretty much can just dominate any Wasteland faction. Just a couple of them in power armor can pretty much just win a battle on their own. So when players encounter them, they're not supposed to fight them unless they're very confident that they can win.
Steel Hooves was known as the Alicorn Slayer, and he was wearing like outdated, shitty power armor. Like they when he went to was it the Manhattan chapter, or no, it was the Philadelphia chapter? Wasn't it?
I think there is a bit of a reason behind that. That may have something to do with the fact that he is a Canterlot Ghoul.
Yeah, no, definitely. As I kind of like it would be going into like too much like random stuff, but because you would figure though that Steel Hooves must have had a reason for holding on to like the old armor, because he was alive like throughout the entire war up until the last day, but he's like still wearing like you would assume that the higher ranking rangers get access to the better stuff, and since he's basically like he's basically the one that the Applejack Rangers end up rallying around.
I mean, he was also pretty well ranked before the war, like when he was a member of the pre-war military.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. It makes you wonder why he chose to like stay. I mean, I figured like maybe he just like decided to like stay in his original gear because he is like they have armor piercing anyway, so who cares? Maybe he had a death.
It might be more to do that like special forces in the real world tend to have a bit more flexibility with their gear when they go into a combat situation compared to the average grunt, because when you're unless you are a specialist in something, you don't necessarily need to have all of the best gear going. You just need to be able to do your job adequately as well as everybody else. So because the Steel Rangers are basically special forces of a sort, you could argue that they're more than that or less than that, but I would argue yes, they are. So they would have an awful lot more flexibility in what they would get hold of. Like they would be, obviously the first pick on power armor because they're the Steel Rangers. They all have to have power armor. That's their thing. But, I imagine he would basically pick something he was most comfortable with, the suit that he knows how to use the best.
That would make sense.
I mean, I'd even imagine that, eventually, like, power armor would start filtering down into, the general infantry. You'd have like power armor units that weren't Steel Rangers attached to regular old infantry squads in the Equestrian Army. Because even one suit of power armor in a combat situation is invaluable. You have the ability to carry much bigger arms than the average soldier can carry. You've got more protection. Basically, if you have a blockage in, say, a Zebra machine gun nest, you send your power armor dude out and remove the nest.
Sorry, my screen went blank for a second. Yeah. After, as far as loyalist versus like Applejack's Rangers, at least in my head, I think that the Steel Rangers would get a bit weaker after the initial conflict, but at least in like Red 36, I kind of had the local chapter dissolve. I had more of a at one point I had more of a arc in mind for them, but it's one of those things where you can't do everything.
Yeah, you can't fit every idea that pops into your head.
Yeah. In in Red 36 though, I had like Steel Rangers that are basically like operating squad by squad instead of like with the backing of a chapter. I feel like you would probably see more of that.
I mean, they would have, I imagine, some independence. So, as long as they report back every so often.
Like that's getting into. I in story, like the chapter dissolved, so like they're basically like functioning as like well-armed mercenaries now. There's still other chapters out there, I'm sure, but like especially they would probably be more like on the outskirts of like NCR territory and such, as opposed to like
rather than operating within it.
Really operating inside of it.
I mean, listen, this is something that I was headcanoning in Lone Star. Is I would have like this, the Applejack's Rangers got basically absorbed into the military of the NCR, because for them, I didn't think it was much a big deal if they remained independent or not, because basically they were trying to help folk, and the NCR is trying to help folk. So it just means they got more resources to pull together to get that job done. Now, obviously, the Steel Rangers, the Loyalists,
kind of had it the opposite. They're all allies, but they're retaining their independence. In my head, the idea is that they kind of end up mirroring some of the same issues that the ministries did. But we don't need to get into that.
Did you have something to say?
Did you hear what I said?
I did hear what you said. You don't think you want to get into that specific thing?
No, I feel like it would be going a bit too far.
Now, I'd like to offer a counterpoint. Now, if Steelhooves was still alive at the end of the story, then I'd have no problem with admitting and saying, yeah, the Applejack's Rangers would maintain independence. But because their kind of rallying figure, the person that was supposed to be leading them, is gone, and they just kind of dissolved into an organized but leaderless organization.
There's Elder Crossroads.
Yeah, but I don't know much about him, and he seems like he didn't really do all that much in the story, as far as I understand. So I would say that he probably would be strong-armed into just joining the NCR because it serves the aims of what.
I don't know about that. We don't we could have this. I feel like this is like getting a little too far. I don't want to have the
Perhaps another time then.
Yeah, perhaps we could do that like a bit of another time.
Well, I think we've gotten to a good length. Was there any questions in the chat, BG? Did anyone ask anything, either you privately or something I missed?
Nope, no questions.
Well, if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, the questions are open. We'll give you 5 minutes to think of something you may want to ask. Otherwise, we'll close up the stream. So, how have you been enjoying your time here then, LD?
Good. Very nervous, but I guess I've managed to outperform my own expectations.
You performed fine. You've been fine. At least you were trying. At least one guest, whose name will remain nameless, was not exactly the most entertaining of guests. So you've at least tried to be very entertaining all throughout.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like lore discussion, I have like all this stuff in my notes, but like in an on the fly conversation, I don't think I would be able to meaningfully argue my points, and that's kind of why I always get nervous at like live conversations.
Dude, you argued your points just fine. It's all good. You did perfectly fine.
No. I'm just explaining to you. Like, I've always had this problem. It's not like I'm not like denigrating my performance or anything. I'm just saying like it would be easier to have this conversation in another time or place.
All right, that's fair.
Thank you for having me, though. I appreciate it.
All right, it's looking like the chat isn't asking anything. So
Okay.
I think it'd be right to close up then.
All right.
So, all right, this has been Post Apoc Horse Talk with your hosts, Gantagious, and my co-host, BG. And our guest tonight has been LD. And until
Thank you
next
for
time,
having me.
keep your eyes trained and your gun in its holster, because you never know what the wasteland brings. And have a good night.